Oh no, he's leaving. Where's he going?
Oh, you know what?
He's back. Okay, I got him.
Carlos, can you hear me?
I had to bring him back in. He left. Hang on.
Oh yeah, I clicked on the wrong thing when I was trying to unshare my application.
Okay, so you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, clear, nice and clear.
Okay. Yeah, Ezra, you're gonna go first still. So mine's gonna be pretty basic. I'm gonna give some product demonstrations, like right here. I don't know if you can see the light behind it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Google, turn off my lights. And so I'm gonna give a demonstration of how that all works. Oh, it did my phone. Okay, Google, turn off my lights.
There you go. It did.
Okay, Google, turn on my lights. Hey, can I say, hey, Jennifer?
Yes.
So I'm going to demonstrate how I can alter my my Google, and so I have something that I could say something like, "Okay, Google, who's your daddy?" And then it'll say, "Come on."
Carlos is my dual say Papi Chulo.
Is that okay or is that inappropriate?
It'll make the kids laugh, I bet.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay.
Well, all right, we're going to get started in just a second. I'm trying to get Bethany back as a presenter. Hang on.
I wish I could turn on my lights.
Wonder.
Jen, I'm good with the presenting.
Okay.
Or the presenter option.
Okay. Thank you, Carmen, for monitoring the chat. I'm going to try one more thing, Bethany. I know you were right quick before we start. I was going to see if I could somehow make you.
Hey, Asia, you can still hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's not going to let me, I don't think. I guess because we are already.
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that are joining us, thank you for taking the time out of your Friday to come learn more about our STEM careers and conversations. We are going to record this session, so it will be available on our websites if you want to reference it later or share with a family, friend, coworker, student. It will be available for you guys to use. So I want to take a minute and introduce our two guests for today. Israel Curiel is a graduate of East Mecklenburg High School in Charlotte and received his international business degree from UNC Charlotte right down the road. He currently works for Wells Fargo as a credit risk analyst. His career experience is a background in being a systems developer and a senior architect, which we are going to hear more about today. Also on the call, we have Carl Curiel, his brother, who currently works for Bank of America and also graduated from UNC Charlotte. So it's great to have two 49ers in the house today, where he received his degree in management information systems. His work experience also includes cloud and infrastructure services, robotics lead, and security access programs. So in just a minute, I'm going to turn it over to them. Just a reminder, if you're on our call, to leave your mic off and your camera off until it's time for the Q&A session. If you have a question as they are going through their presentation, if you will just post it in the chat. We may or may not be launching a poll during part of the presentation. We're working on that feature now. So just a reminder. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Good morning, everybody. So Ms. Callaghan has given us a couple of questions to first address, but I'm hoping that during the question and answer session, we'll have a lot more activity and you guys can ask me a bunch of questions. First of all, my name is Israel Curiel. I was born in Mexico City. We grew up living in Texas, Houston, San Antonio, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then finally Charlotte. We actually went to 3 high schools in 3 states. So needless to say, that kind of forces you to either be an extreme introvert or extreme extrovert, and it made me extreme extrovert. My education background, I graduated from East Mecklenburg in Charlotte, and I went to UNC Charlotte. My degree was international business. I did that because I saw myself as a high schooler thinking I was going to do marketing and get to travel internationally. I already spoke Spanish and I also spoke French. So that seemed really exciting to me to be able to travel the world, hopefully to do marketing campaigns. Needless to say, that didn't quite turn out the way I needed to. I want to tell you that in college, I had to take statistics twice. I failed the first time, and I passed statistics the second time with a D. And that's not what I do for a living. So what you choose in college, what you're thinking in high school may change, and that's totally okay. But I'm here to tell you that for me, I tell everybody, do math. I need to actually update my profile on LinkedIn. My current title is Credit Risk Analytics Officer. So it's more along the lines of data science. I like to joke with people and tell everybody that I draw pretty pictures for a living. And what I mean by that is I spend my entire days building charts. I do line charts, bar charts, pie charts. So my goal is to present data from the bank, and we often have billions of rows of data in our databases, and I need to present that to our senior management in a very concise and intuitive way. What that means is our executives frequently only have minutes, if not seconds, to look at the information that you present them. They're on the clock all the time, so they want it quickly. They want to look at a picture and understand what's happening, and that's what I mean by concise and intuitive. It's a real art form. I've been doing it now for about 25 years. So a little bit about the background in my career, how I got started. I really did get started in the mailroom at a company, one of the predecessors of the banks. It was called First Union. I was in college. I had to come up with tuition money to pay the bills. So I took a job at First Union in the mailroom. I want to tell you about my first day because I actually got promoted within the first 2 hours. It was a stroke of luck, but what happened was I'm sitting there sorting the mail, and I heard the ladies on the other side calling a bank in Colombia. What had happened is a credit card transaction had been billed for $20,000, and it was supposed to be only $2,000. So I heard them calling the bank, and they're like, "We don't speak Spanish," so they couldn't talk to the bank in Colombia. And I'm thinking I could talk to them. So I walked over and said, "Hey, ladies, I speak Spanish. Do you want me to call them and tell them what's going on?" And they're like, "Yes, please." So I walked over. I called the bank. Said, "Hey guys, this transaction was incorrect. It wasn't 20,000. It was 2,000. Can you send the balance back?" Like, "Sure, no problem. It'll be there on Monday." Click. I'm like, "Okay, the money will be back next week." So I went back to the mail and sorting my mail, and within a couple of minutes, I saw the manager walking up towards me, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, I'm in trouble. I did something wrong." He's like, "Israel, come with me." He took me back to the office and said, "Forget the mail. I want you to take a job as an accountant at the bank." And I'm like, "Okay, no problem." I mean, it's obviously more money. And I got promoted within the first 2 hours of being.
We're doing your volume a little bit.
I'm sorry, was there a question? Okay. Anyway, so that was my first day at the bank. It was called First Union. My education was really around marketing. So it was all about designing marketing campaigns, understanding your target audience, and that's anything around marketing. what happened is when I started working during college, I started at the bank. I started doing very basic data entry, accounting work. And what I found was in the 1990s, the PC was just being starting to be used. Oh, someone's not muted. So at that time, PCs were just really starting to be used in the offices, and a lot of people had no idea how to use them. And I was a college kid, so the manager, we're talking about a big project. We needed to collect a lot of data. And so I had heard my peers at school talk about databases. Ms. Callahan, I don't know, do your students typically know what a database is?
Yes, they should.
Okay. So really, a database is simply a container for lots and lots of data. At the bank, we collect all your credit card transactions. We collect all your mortgage transactions. We collect your, applications for a business loan. That information, now we have billions of rows of data over we will carry about 20 years of data. So that's a lot of data. Anyway, so at the time I heard my peers at school talking about a database. Honestly, I had no idea. I had taken a class on database and I had no idea what it meant. So in a meeting, I'm like, hey, why don't we build our own database? And the manager was like, perfect, you're going to do it for us. And I was like, okay. My career path started with that manager sent me to 1 week of training for a product called Access 1.0. You guys know it today as Microsoft Access. I started using it before Microsoft bought it. So this manager sent me to 1 week of training. So I learned what a database is. And number two, I learned something called structured query language. It's often referred to as SQL. I'm hoping that we'll do a poll. I'd like to see if anyone has ever heard of SQL, how many of you have done any kind of programming. Structured query language, or SQL, is the core of what I do. Every day I'm writing some query to pull information from databases. There's these very large databases, and I would have to say 75% of the analysts. That's not a mute. So we pull data every day from databases. And on my typical day, what happens is I'm either writing queries to pull data, and then I take that information and create charts, or I'm meeting with internal customers and they say, okay, here's my data. And they usually like, here. And I'm like, what do you want to do with it? And they're like, I don't know, I want some information from it. A lot of times, my customers don't even know what they want to see. So my job is to take that data, kind of summarize it, adding and subtracting, dividing, multiplication, and producing statistics, very basic statistics. I mean, I'm talking normally like the average and the percent change month over month. That's it. That's what I do on a living, for my living. We don't do more complicated statistics, at least in my role, because most people don't understand it. If I were to produce regression analysis and pass them on to customers, that's way above most people's heads. So my job is data science, and it does get super complicated, but most of my day-to-day work is very simple. Summarize data, divide, produce averages, and month-over-month changes. So what happens is my customers meet with me, they give me their data, say, hey, could you create some reports? And then I go and create the first version. They're like, oh, wow, that's cool. Let's do this and this. And we have an iterative exchange. I'll make little tweaks and like, can you add this filter? Can you maybe change the colors? Can you sort it so it's the largest to smallest or smallest to largest? And that's what typically happens on my typical day. Back in the old days, before COVID-19, my job starts, at 8:30ish, 8 to 9:30, 8 to 9, sorry. I'll be in the office. I'm reading my emails. Got to go get the coffee. And I'm doing emails for about a third of the day. The next third of the day, or maybe the next 2 hours, I'm doing some actual communication with my customers. And then more than half of my day I spent coding, specifically doing the SQL, producing charts. I also use another product called SAS. SAS is a company here in North Carolina, in Cary, and that program stands for Statistical Analysis Systems. So I use that program to do some of the statistics. It has all kinds of features to do very high-end statistics, but the reality is the people who use our reports, that would be above their head. I just need to summarize, average, and produce percentages. So one of the questions Ms. Callahan asked me is, what one piece of advice would you give to someone interested in my career? You have to learn as many languages as you can. I can tell you that my first language, English, was by far the hardest language to learn. Math was the easiest. Then you have to, well, in my career, I had to learn SQL. That it's a language in itself. SQL, one of the hottest languages to know right now. Is Python. That's not me. That's not me. That's somebody else. Okay, so learn as many languages as you can. I don't know how many of you have started to learn some programming languages, but Python is a language that's used extensively in data science. It can be used for programming robots. I know that there's all kinds of uses for Python. I use Python for statistics. And I also use SAS, which is only statistics. If you guys really want to learn this, actually, another thing I highly recommend, I wish I'd done, get yourself internships. What happens now is a lot of nonprofit companies have no idea how to take their data and produce a chart. As simple as a chart in Excel. I think some of you already know how to use Excel. You know how to use charts. Most people don't know how to do that. Volunteer for an organization to do their data. Once you get to college, right after your freshman year, you can get an internship. I can tell you that we already bring interns into Wells Fargo after their freshman year, and they get paid very good money. So my number one advice is never stop learning. When you're home, if you're interested in any data, in any career, it's in data science, data analytics. A subset of that is called data visualization. Those are great, great careers. And any of the banks will pick you up in a heartbeat. And I don't know if you guys know this, Charlotte is the second largest financial center after New York. We have Bank of America, we have Wells Fargo, we have Citibank has branches, Ally, BB&T merged. I forgot there's a new name for the company. But many of the top 10 largest banks in the U.S. are right here in Charlotte. You have a ready-made market. You don't have to go anywhere outside of this city. There are so many jobs. The type of work that I do really can be applied in any career. It could be in sports. How many times do you guys look at sports for the statistics in sports, whether it be soccer or football, baseball, tennis? All of those sports industries produce a lot of statistics, whether you want to get into marketing, as a matter of fact. So a lot of my career, I've done data, but a lot of that data management that I've done is actually used for marketing. I'll give you a quick example. A lot of times I'm I'll do a presentation to school kids, and I'll ask you, how many times have you guys searched for, I don't know, some specific shoe that you want to buy, or a shirt, or a watch, and all of a sudden, in your sidebar, you start getting these advertisements for, hey, check out this shoe, check out this car. The cars, you guys look at cars, right? So that is called targeted marketing. And guess what? It's data science. People are watching, companies are watching everything you do. I mean, everything you do is being recorded somewhere, and they're going to market to you. Another creepy example. And it's so funny how many times I'll ask, How many times have you guys not even searched on your computer, but you just said, hey, I'm curious about this car or this product or this candy. And all of a sudden, in your search results, when you open up a web browser, you get these marketing campaigns for that. Supposedly, they're not listening to us. I don't think you're not supposed to be listening to us. But it's kind of freaky how many times we see those situations where we get marketing for things that we have only talked about. Let's see. I did want to mention salaries. Okay. So let me tell you, first of all, the money is not the most important thing. You have to find a career that you love. I can tell you I started on my career because I loved the puzzles of figuring out these problems. The problems of how do I pull this data? How do I summarize it? How do I present it? These were all really complicated puzzles. When I was just starting out, I was this young kid who would spend hours and hours. Like on Friday nights, my friends were going out. Saturday nights, my friends were going out. I would actually stay in the office trying to pull this information. In your early career, you have to invest the time. But once I started investing the time to learn the language of SQL, learn Python, learn SAS, you start building those skills. Needless to say, your salaries go up. I can tell you that the last person that we hired, she had a master's in statistics. Her first year, we started her at $95,000. At least all of my experience is only at the bank. I can tell you that the salaries will range anywhere from starting from 95 to 160. 160,000. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at jobs. As a matter of fact, here's what you can do. Go to glassdoor.com and search for the job that you want. See what the average salary is. Here in Charlotte, there's so much demand for data scientists or people who can do data analytics. Yeah, I mean, there's a big range, but you can top up. Some of these data scientists are getting over $200,000 a year. And on top of that, there's bonuses. The bonuses range anywhere from 10% to 30%. Can you imagine I'll ask you a quick stat question. If you're making $150,000 a year and your bonus is 30%, anybody want to guess how much that is? So bonus time comes around March. They're like, hey, here's your 30%. Have fun. Needless to say, salaries in data science and data analytics are extremely well paid. Look at if you're curious about, you're exploring different careers, I highly encourage you, go out to Glassdoor or Monster.com. There's a ton of job boards. They tell you exactly what you need to know. They tell you what you need to know. They tell you the salaries. That would give you a good idea of what you'd like to do for a living. All right, so I think I've spoken about 20 minutes. Ms. Callahan, I covered everything that you asked me to cover.
Yes, I had a quick question, and you and maybe Carl wants to jump in here too. Being from the same family, how did you both end up in your careers? I mean, I kind of relate them a little bit together. The tracks that you've taken, was it encouraged? Was it pushed in your family? A coincidence? I just wondered about that myself.
So I can tell you the impetus for me. I can point it back to one day for me when I was 17 years old. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, me, my brother Carl, my mom, my dad, and my aunt, we're all working the weekends at the hotel uptown, Adams Mark Hotel. And I was a banquet waiter, along with my brother was right there with me. And one dinner, it was like Saturday night, I'm waiting on people, and I'm waiting on this 15-year-old kid. And obviously, people who go into these banquets are frequently affluent people. And I thought, oh my God, I need to do something with my own life, or I'm going to be a servant to other people, the wealthy, for the rest of my life. My parents always said, get an education. They don't have an education. My mom got a high school degree My dad dropped out of school at 6th grade. So they knew if you want a better life, get a good education. And I already knew it. And I always pointed back to that day when I was 17 years old. It kind of solidified it. I can do this blue collar job that was very difficult, where I could get a good education. And needless to say, from there, I went off to college. I constantly learned. I learned all these new languages, and it's turned out very, very well for me. Carl and I kind of started our careers at the same time, and you're right, they're kind of in sync, but we kept talking back and forth about the things that we were working on. And yeah, the careers are kind of similar. It was a mutual encouragement, I think. Carl, what do you think?
No, I agree. Can you hear me okay? I just
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I agree. I think though, Israel and I had different instances where we were just like popped into our heads and say, "Hey, I actually want to have something bigger in life." And mine was a different moment. I mean, 100% Israel and I worked like crazy, like waiters at a hotel that's still in downtown today. I actually went there about a year ago for some event, technical event, and I walked around and people, the waiters there were like, "Are you okay? Do you need something?" And I was like, my brother and I worked here when we were teenagers, and for like sometimes we would work all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And you know, my dad was the chef at that hotel, so yeah, we worked really hard. But then for me, it was different when I actually got to college. I didn't know what I wanted to be actually. I wanted to first work on Wall Street, so I got a degree in finance, and then later on, this internet started popping up and web pages, and I started one day just looking at web pages, and I said, this looks kind of cool. And yeah, that's how I got into computers eventually. So yeah, I didn't want to veer away. I'll let you finish, Israel, and then I'll start with what I do for a living.
No, that's perfect, because I think we also have to point out that when we were kids, when we were getting out of high school, internet was not a thing. It just really kind of took off when we were in college. And both Carl and I are looking at this and I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. It was not my original career choice. Thank God I changed over. But yeah, we just grew up in a very different time, and thankfully, I was thinking at the time when I was a kid, thinking, oh my God, I might be the last person on the earth to learn to program a web page. That was 1995. I didn't realize we were on the bleeding edge of learning this new technology. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time. I'm going to pass it over to my brother and let him do his presentation.
All right, thank you, Israel. Actually, yeah, that was. I didn't realize it was going to take so much time, but I was looking at what Israel was presenting, and I do agree with everything he said. It comes from interest. And for me, it was a little different the way I got interested. I'm going to step back a little bit like Israel did. That in high school, we went to 3 different high schools. I was like really social and really like I played football in high school, and then we ended up moving 3 times to 3 different cities in 3 different states, from a big city to a small little town in Oklahoma to here in Charlotte. And by then I became more quiet, introverted kind of person because, hey, I should move again. I'm going to leave. So then eventually I wasn't sure if college was for me, because high school, I was so quiet and I didn't think college was going to be really for me because I was so introverted. But once you get to college, you meet a whole different type of, you're in a whole different type of environment. It's nothing like high school. I promise you, it's nothing like high school. It's definitely a lot different levels. I actually got to meet people from Israel, and I lived in an international dorm. So this is really interesting. I got to meet people from all over the world. And, sometimes people ask, like, you could literally look at my Facebook or Instagram, and you'll see where I've traveled to different parts of the world. And I have friends in Japan, and I just not during this COVID time, but pre-COVID, in October 2019, I went to Thailand and Vietnam, and I saw one of my friends who who is from Thailand, and we hung out, and I got to see the culture, and it was incredible. So there's an academic aspect to college, but there's also learning and connecting with different people. It's so incredible, so awesome. When I drive by UNC Charlotte, I'm like, oh my God, those were the best years of my life. So definitely, there's more than just academics. There's experiences that you get to enjoy at UNC Charlotte. So, getting back to what I do, as I mentioned, I started first in finance. I wanted to go to Wall Street, be a broker, and I saw this movie called Wall Street, and I thought that was what I wanted to do. And then slowly, I realized that I liked learning about technology, little things. So I won't drag the time too much, but one thing that I think is really important is you being young, getting interested in this stuff right away. I mean, that's really the thing, is the earlier you learn, the better you're off. You're like, well, I can't build something from a company, because I understand. When you're younger, you're like, you feel a little bit intimidated saying, oh, I can't do this for this company. It's like really big. Well, you know what? Start at home, and I'll tell you how. So I love technology in so many ways. I've worked in the cloud, I've worked in robotics, and right now I'm in cybersecurity, all for the bank. But it comes from self-interest, and I do a lot of learning at home. That's the key thing, is you learn more when you go home and you're interested in it. And let me show you a quick example. So so many of us don't realize we can automate things around our house. So there's this thing called Smart Display by Google Assistant. I have these and the little hub Google Assistants all around my house. And I did it all by myself. I set it up. So now basically I have set up a Google network inside my house on my own. Let me give you the first quick example. As you can see, there's a lamp behind me. I'll just say, okay, Google, turn off my lights. If it works. There you go. It turned off my lights. And that's all through my house. So literally, I have my front door has a special name. So I'll say, okay, Google, turn on my castle. Unfortunately, you can't see the front door.
All right, turning on castle.
There you go. So you can do this at home. You can do this right now at home. Even coming, right before Christmas, we have Black Friday. You can buy these little Google Hubs for $25. Maybe they'll even be like $20 for that time. So you can really just start there. That's how cool technology is. You don't have to build this, something massive for a big company. You could do it at home and then show your parents something like this. Let me see. What else was I going to show you? Oh yeah. This is what I like to do with my Google. I actually did some configurations. Check this out. Okay, Google, who's your daddy?
Carlos is my dual say Papi Chulo.
So see, as you can see, you can configure it any way you want. And that's like the most exciting thing, that you can do that at home. And then you can, if you get more Googles, you can set them up all around the house. You could say, okay, Google, broadcast, it's dinner time.
Okay, broadcasting now.
And so right now, you probably can't hear it, but throughout my house, it's saying, okay, guys, it's dinner time. So, wherever my son is running around the house, all I have to say is, hey, call him down so, he could come and eat. So you see all the things you could do. Literally, you could do that at your house now. If you had 2 Google Homes, you could set up one in the kitchen, one in your room, so that your parents can call you up whenever you could do whatever. And I actually prepared for all of you. Let's see here. Okay, I'm seeing some of this. Okay, I'm seeing some of this stuff on the chat too. But as you can see, you could do numerous things, and I'm going to share something here. Right, quick. All right. So where do I start? That's the important thing. Perfect. It just so happens that if you look on my screen, actually, I was hoping to get the other display, but this is fine too. On October the 8th, you just go to Google Assistant. Actually, the browser's, I can't believe it's not coming up. Well, nonetheless, you could pull up Google Assistant's Google on YouTube, right? I mean, on your Google search. October the 8th, they have a Google Assistant developer event. It's free. Check it out. You're never too young to learn. And look down here. It says way to build. Do your mobile app. You set it up through your phone. Do your natural conversations. Guess what I just did? I said, "Who's your daddy?" And that was a natural conversation. Web presence. You could do anything through the internet, and you could connect your home devices. So yeah, you could literally start now. So I definitely advise you to check it out and just see what you can do with it. And you'll see so many things. That's not my next slide. Let's see. Oh yeah. So here's an example. This is really new. Guys, did you know you could talk to your stove? Like literally, if you could do Samsung Intelligent Range, you can see the video there. Now I can be at home. I'm coming home. I left my pasta in the oven, and I'll say, "Okay, Google, warm up my stove to 300," and it will literally do that now. That's amazing. And this is all through artificial intelligence / automation, and you can start learning this now. Literally, if you learn how to just do the simple stuff, by the time you're graduated, all your stuff may be automated. Your microwave, your stove. I mean, it's really amazing. Everything you could do right now in high school, at home. Where do I get started? I've started little stuff. I've done robotics. I did not know anything about robotics in the sense where where you move certain things and stuff. But now you can use automation. Robotics can be stated in two methods. You have software robotics and physical robotics. I do mainly software robotics because at the bank where I work, we can automate so many things. You have people moving numbers all around or money all around. Well, now we don't need people to actually click somewhere and move it somewhere else or grab it from somewhere and type it. That used to be the old days. Now, basically, software automation or robotics can just read the screen and say, "Okay, I see what you're trying to do," and do what a human does in 8 hours. A robot can do it in an hour, maybe even less. So it's been big for us. And if you learn anything with automation, this is one of the first steps. But let's say you really like this Google thing that I just displayed. Well, literally, the Udemy site is what I use heavily, very, very heavily. Now you're saying, "Oh, it's $109." Actually, no. What I do is I wait for specials, and they have these specials like once every 2 months, sometimes more often, but they come out a lot during the holidays.
Something went wrong.
Oh, sorry about that.
Try again in a few seconds.
And so then so they'll come out for $9. So you can actually take that class for $9, and it'll show you many, many things that you could see here. Create an app in Google Assistance. Publish actions so that basically you're controlling your Google, as I displayed earlier. So that's a lot. That's a great way to really get started. And eventually you hear about GitHub. That's where you could put your code in. You all have already heard about GitHub, but it's a very popular spot where you could share code that you put together yourself, and you could grab it from other developers as well. And then finally, what Israel had stated, I stated as well. Salaries. So this, as you can see, I left the URL up there. This is from the Robert Half agency, but like he said, there's Glassdoor. There's so many. Here's a quick example of the type of pay there is in these jobs. As you can see, data engineer was the one Israel was talking about at 166,000, and then you have DevOps engineer. DevOps is actually the cloud, but that group is actually called DevOps. They're the ones who create the clouds, and I even think 120 is a little low there. But that's where you run the cloud. The cloud is really encompassing everything we do. Literally, what I just did shoots up to the cloud and then comes back down to us, because all that information, when you talk to it, it needs to translate it. It actually goes to the cloud. It's not like it's all on your cloud on your Google device. And then ultimately, what I mentioned that I do today is the information security. That's very important because everything, when the Alexa came out, there were people talking about, hey, Alexa's recording my conversations and sending it to someone else. That's information security. So all these tie in together. I mean, literally everything that I spoke about, there was automation, it goes to the cloud, and you got to make sure your information is secure. So what I want to really tell you guys is if you don't think you're going to do one thing for the rest of your life, if you're in technology, you have to adapt. And that's from the very beginning, Israel and I learned, is you have to adapt as technology gets better. Ultimately, we're going to have faster computers called quantum computing, and we have to adapt with the new technology. Everything's going to be faster. 5G makes everything go faster. Our phones are going to go faster, but you know what that means? That means we could put more information into our phones, and everything's going to move much faster. So we can automate things much quicker nowadays. And yeah, that's the way we're heading. So that is my presentation. I tried to squeeze it in as quick as I could. That's all I have, Ms. Callahan.
All right, we'll do some of the Q&As that have popped up in the chat. Real quick, what did you guys want to be when you were younger, like as kids?
I forgot that there was a movie in 1984 called Trading Places. It was about Eddie Murphy I think he was a homeless guy, and he got pushed into being a trader, like Carl was just saying. He was in New York, and he was trading futures and options. And I had no idea about any, growing up careers. We only knew about being in restaurant business, and I already knew how hard that was. So I didn't want to do that. But my first thought was to be a trader as well as he did, but I thought that was way out of my reach. Needless to say, because I do charts for a living, I now trade stocks all the time. You don't need to go to Wall Street. You could do right now, if the students are interested in being a stock trader today, you could create yourself a paper account. So just pretend money and practice trading your own account. That was one thing that I thought about being a trader. That was my first guess for a career. And I'm trying to remember marketing, just traveling. I think it was traveling because we were from Mexico and we traveled back and forth from Mexico. And I wanted to travel all over the world. So anything that I could find for traveling, and that's how I came up on international marketing.
Carl, what about you?
It's interesting. Israel sort of touched the same area as I did. I think because we moved around a lot during high school. See, when you grew up in one city as an adolescent, and we grew up in Houston, Texas, there was a certain, personality. If you go and meet someone in Chicago, someone in New York, at your teenage years, just people, there's a different way of people are and act, and it's just different. And then we moved to Little Town in Oklahoma, and then ultimately here, I actually picked up this thought of, hey, I'd like to get to go to other places in the world. And to me, it was far-fetched. I was like, there's no way. But when I actually went to college, I said, okay, I know I can't get a job where people pay me to go around the world, but let me find out what can help me be able to do that. So yeah, there was this dream of me saying, hey, I want to be able to see the world, but there was really never anything that would allow me to do that as a job. So we can have our dreams and we can have our careers. And that's sometimes we want to mix both, and that's perfectly fine. But if there's other things you really enjoy on the side, your job can still help you achieve that dream. And that's what's the important thing about it, is that I have my hobbies, and it's luckily I've been able to go around the world, Asia. I'm planning to go to the Middle East post-COVID to go. If you haven't heard, Dubai has a world something called World Expo. Look it up. It's once every 5 years, and it's this magnificent thing where 52 countries from around the world come together and have this event. I mean, there's interesting stuff that's really out there, and to experience that, it's a great thing to do.
Ms. Callahan, I wanted to just compare. I posted a link to the chat for the average salary in North Carolina. The average salary is $52,000 or $53,000 a year. The salaries that we're talking about are 3 times that. Again, I don't want to say that it's the most. It's definitely, money is not the most important thing. You have to love what you do. But having a job like this allows you, gives you the freedom and flexibility to do anything that you want. So, and and I was reading through these comments of Paul's, and I do see a lot of the students that are here have parents who are in technology. They already know that these are great careers. For instance, like we didn't talk about today in Carl and I's work, we work from home. I can work from home even when it wasn't COVID. I get up, I walk from my bedroom, have my cup of coffee, and sit down to work. So the work that we do, we don't have to physically be anywhere. And when we're past this period, I could still continue to work to COVID from home. I'd rather go to the office because I miss the interactions with people, but I could do my job anywhere. I someday plan to travel the United States from a camper. We love to travel, and that's what we're going to do. My wife is also an application developer for the bank. So both of our jobs we can do anywhere in the world. There was a question a little while ago. Someone was asking what was the actual process for me to do some data preparation and do these presentations, and I'll just go through that real quick. It takes a long time to understand the data. There's, let's say, dozens, maybe even hundreds of tables that I have to pull a little piece of data, like the customer's name, the customer's credit card balance, the customer's mortgage, and that comes from different little places, and they're called tables in the database. And I write my SQL, and it might take me a day or a couple of weeks to get the SQL, the structured query language, just right to pull that data in and summarize it. So I pull my data from a product called Teradata. It's one of the largest databases used by large institutions, large banking systems or banks. And then I take that information and I use another product called Tableau. Tableau is a free product for students and teachers. And that is a tool that lets you import the data and produce all kinds of line graphs, bar graphs, charts. And then you can do filters. And you can kind of perform your real-time analysis. When I take that information, put it in a chart, and I give my customers filters, they can look at different time frames. They can look at different products. I am building them tools to do their own analytics work. So my job is to help other people with their jobs and make their lives easier, or make their jobs easier specifically. So that's how my work, that's the process of my work. So that was a great question. Thank you.
And then ultimately, I did see one saying, "How's someone was asking how is the vet connected to technology?" As Israel mentioned, technology is unique in its way. Unfortunately, if you're in the medical field, you can't. It's not so easy to work from home because you need to attend to either if you're from the veterinarian side or from the people side, you need to attend to parents, to children, and or to pets. So technology is not quite the same thing. It's a different area. Technology, though, does apply to any type of industry. And when it comes to hospitals or even restaurants, their technology is on the back end. So necessarily you'll never meet with a customer. But every type of industry that exists today, I mean, every type uses technology. Now we have artificial intelligence, which will make things much faster, and you'll never see it. It'll be transparent. But when you go anywhere you go, you type something in on a computer, or even at the restaurant places. I'm trying to think of the Italian restaurant where you type in where you want to pay right there at your table. That's also technology, but you don't ever see those people who build that technology. So it's pretty much everywhere.
Do we have any other questions for the group?
I saw that 16 people responded about having experience programming, and I'll tell you what, you guys are way ahead of where I was. So if you have any kind of experience, you don't have to wait till you graduate from high school or college. You could start learning a programming language today. and it makes you more valuable. Companies will come and search you out. The people who know how to program today, who know how to manage data, I mean, you may not be interested in managing data yet, but in college you probably will. Companies will search for you and say, hey, we'll give you more money, come to us.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned earlier, that's true, Israel. It is a good result there that I see 87% people said yes. Yeah, I strongly encourage attend that Google Assistant event on October the 8th and just listen in and see what else you can learn. You can never turn your back on the learning opportunity, because it could get you interested in something more than what you thought before. Because honestly, I swear to you, Israel and I didn't know any of this would exist, was going to happen. None of us can.
It didn't exist. It didn't exist.
It didn't exist. So don't. It's important in technology to say, I just want to do this. No, we don't know. We don't know what else is going to happen by then. So definitely always look at these Google events. By the way, are free because they're trying to encourage you to learn more, to learn about the products. So definitely, I encourage you to learn it and try it at home. I mean, literally, ask your parents for that $9, $20 Google Assistant, and you could literally program it by yourself. That's a great way to start. So I encourage that.
We had one last question. Where do you write your SQL Python programs to process data? And we'll end on that question.
At the bank, I use a product called Teradata. It's really expensive. It's really for the large institutions, but you can use something as simple as it's called MySQL. That's totally free. I don't know if you guys have Microsoft Access as part of school. Microsoft Access is another great way. Udemy, if you take a class about databases or SQL, again, that means structured query language, you could start learning today, and they'll tell you the free tools. You can go and write SQL on a Google data platform, and it's all free, especially because you guys are students. All these companies want you to get involved, because you know what? Right now you have 50 people in this meeting, but there's tens of thousands of people that have no interest. You guys are the diamond in the rough. These are good paying salaries, good careers, because nobody wants to do it. I think it's crazy. Nobody wants to invest the time to learn SQL. No one wants to learn Python. It's not that hard, I swear. I don't think anything that I have learned was difficult. It's just taken 25 years. Just keep learning. You guys are thus the fact that you're here in this presentation, I think you guys are way on top of it. I wasn't doing this kind of thing when I was at your age. So you guys keep learning, and you guys have very bright futures ahead of you. Yeah. So somebody was saying they just learned Python, and it was easy. See, I swear it is. Learn Python, because when you learn one programming language, all the others are easy. It's just they're very similar. Don't forget SQL. SQL needs to be your second language.
All right. Well, I just want to thank both of you guys for agreeing to volunteer your time and share your knowledge and expertise with our students and some of our teachers on the meeting. If you guys have any further questions, you can shoot your teacher or your STEM coach or myself, Jennifer.Callaghan, a question, and we'll make sure that Israel and Carl get those questions. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and end the meeting. And just, again, thank you both, and for everybody that attended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.